Neri crouched low in the dense purple foliage, her clawed hands pressing against the soft soil. The 3 moons of her world cast eerie shadows through the twisted trees. She had been tracking the alien for 2 days now. The crash had awakened her from deep sleep, the sound of metal tearing through the atmosphere like a wounded animal. Her people, the Daki, were born hunters. Their silver-scaled skin allowed them to blend with the shadows. Their large eyes could see heat in darkness, and their strong legs could chase prey for days without rest. Hunting was not just for food. It was their purpose, their culture, their religion. The stronger the mind of the prey, the greater the honor, her mother had taught her. And this prey was unlike any she had hunted before. Neri slipped between the hanging vines, careful not to disturb the poisonous red flowers that dropped deadly nectar when touched. The wreckage of the ship lay scattered across the valley floor. Most of it had burned during entry, but the escape pod remained mostly intact. The alien had been clever, salvaging parts to build a small shelter beside a freshwater stream. She watched him through the gathering mist. He moved differently than her kind, only 2 legs instead of 4, no tail for balance, and skin that looked soft and vulnerable. But his eyes showed intelligence as he worked methodically to repair some device from his ship. The elders called these creatures humans. Few had seen them. Their ships rarely came to this part of space, and never to the surface of Dhaka. This one must have suffered a navigation failure to crash here, in the sacred hunting grounds. Neri's stomach growled. Her last meal had been 3 days ago. The food supplies on her world were growing scarce. The great herds that once roamed the plains had dwindled to nothing. Her people had hunted too efficiently, too greedily. Now they hunted each other or waited for visitors from the stars. This human would feed her family for a week if she brought him back alive. The freshest meat was always the best. She watched him drink from the stream. He had found the safe water somehow, avoiding the poisonous blue pools that dotted the landscape. Clever prey indeed. The human. She heard him speaking to his broken communication device, calling himself Tay, had set up simple alarms around his camp. Strings with metal pieces that would clang together if disturbed. Primitive but effective against the less intelligent predators of her world. Neri circled the camp, staying downwind. The human's sense of smell would be weak compared to hers, but she took no chances. His shelter was simple. Metal panels leaned against a rock face, covered with local vegetation for insulation. He had built a small fire, the smoke carefully vented through a stone chimney to make it less visible. Night was falling quickly, as it always did when all 3 moons aligned. Soon the temperature would drop to freezing. The human had prepared for this too, gathering extra wood for his fire. Now was the time to strike. When the darkness was complete, but before he retreated fully into his shelter. Neri moved closer, her muscles tensing. The scent of the human grew stronger. An odd smell, clean and unfamiliar. Not unpleasant. She paused at this thought. The smell of prey should not be judged. Only the taste of its flesh mattered. The human was working on something small and delicate. His fingers moved with precision that impressed even Neri. Her people valued skill in all forms. This human would have made a fine craftsman among the Daki. 10 meters away now. The human continued working, unaware of her presence. Neri could see the heat of his body clearly against the cooling night air. His heart beat steadily, not the rapid flutter of frightened prey. He did not know death watched him. 5 meters. Neri unsheathed her hunting claws, the sound no louder than a leaf falling. She would take him quickly, a strike to the base of the neck to paralyze but not kill. Live prey lasted longer and tasted better. 3 meters. The human stopped suddenly. His head tilted, listening. Had he heard her? Impossible. No prey ever detected Neri before she struck. Yet he turned, looking directly at the darkness where she hid. "I know something's there," he said, his voice calm despite the slight elevation in his heartbeat. "I've been watched for days." Neri remained motionless. Perhaps he was bluffing, speaking to calm his own fears. The human set down his tool and stood slowly. "My name is Ta. I come from Earth. I mean no harm to whoever lies here." He spoke the common galactic language, not his native tongue. Another sign of intelligence. Neri felt a strange reluctance growing within her. The most intelligent prey deserved respect. A quick death, not fear. "I crashed here by accident," the human continued. "My ship was damaged passing through an asteroid field. I'm trying to repair my communicator to call for help." Tay took a step toward the darkness where Neri hid. His heat signature pulsed with caution, but not terror. "I have food to share, technology that might be useful to you." Food. Share. These were not concepts in the hunter's vocabulary. Prey was food. It was not shared. It was taken. Yet Neri hesitated. No prey had ever spoken to her before the kill. None had ever offered anything. The human took another step forward, then stopped as Neri finally moved, her silver scales catching the moonlight as she rose to her full height, nearly twice as tall as the human. "You're beautiful," the human said softly, surprising her again. Neri clicked her jaw plates, a sound of confusion. This was not how the hunt was supposed to proceed. The prey should run. It should fight or beg. It should not stand calmly, offering food and compliments. "You came to kill me," Ta said, still without fear in his voice. "But I think we might both gain more if you don't." Nari tilted her head. For the first time in her life, she felt curiosity overriding hunger. This strange creature from the stars might be the most interesting prey she had ever encountered. Perhaps she would listen before she killed him. After all, the hunt was as much about challenge as it was about the final strike. The human smiled, revealing flat teeth unsuitable for tearing flesh. "Let's talk," he said. "I think we might surprise each other." Tay kept his hands visible as he slowly backed toward his makeshift shelter. The silver-scaled alien towered over him, powerful muscles rippling beneath reflective skin. Her elongated face featured 4 glowing eyes, 2 large primary ones and 2 smaller ones above, all fixed on him with predatory intensity. "I have food," Ta said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Different kinds. You might find something you like." The alien, Nari, she would later tell him was her name, made a clicking sound with her jaw plates. She moved with incredible grace for something so large, each step precise and controlled. Why would prey offer food to hunter? She asked in halting common language, her voice deeper than Tay expected, with a musical quality that resonated oddly in the night air. "Because I'm more valuable alive than dead," Tay replied, reaching carefully into his survival pack. He pulled out a sealed container. "And because sharing food is how my people begin friendships." Neri's head tilted at an angle that would have been impossible for a human neck. Friendship with food. Strange concept. Ty opened the container, revealing protein bars, dried fruits, and synthetic meat. The alien's nostrils flared, the small breathing holes on either side of her face expanding and contracting rapidly. "You eat dead things," she observed, her tone somewhere between disgust and curiosity. "We eat plants and animals, yes, usually cooked." Ta held out a piece of synthetic protein. "This isn't real meat, but it has similar nutrients." Neri studied the offering, then with unexpected speed, snatched it from his palm. Her clawed fingers never touched his skin, a deliberate precision that impressed Ta. She sniffed the protein cube before placing it in her mouth. Her eating was nothing like a human's. Her jaw plates separated sideways rather than up and down, revealing rows of sharp teeth that ground rather than chewed. "Strange taste," she said after swallowing. "Not unpleasant." Something in her posture changed. The immediate threat seemed to diminish as curiosity took over. Ty felt his shoulders relax slightly. "My world is dying," Neri said abruptly. "Hunting grounds empty. Once great herds gone." Ta nodded slowly. "Resource depletion. It happens on many worlds when populations grow too quickly or use resources without allowing them to replenish." You know of this. My people nearly destroyed our world that way. We learned to balance our needs with what nature could provide, but not before causing great damage. Nari dropped to a crouching position that brought her eyes level with Ta's. The menace in her stance had been replaced by something like interest. You fixed your world. We're trying to. That's why I'm here in this part of space. Ta pointed to a small case that had survived the crash. That contained samples of microorganisms engineered to clean polluted soil and water. I'm part of a scientific mission to test terraforming techniques on uninhabited planets. Terraforming. Nari repeated the word carefully. Making dead worlds live again. Exactly. The night had grown cold. Ta shivered despite his thermal suit. Noticing this, Nari glanced at his small fire. Your heat source is inefficient, she stated. Then, surprisingly, she moved toward the fire and adjusted the burning logs with precise movements of her claws. The flames leaped higher, casting warm light across the small camp. Thank you, Ta said, genuinely surprised. Prey that freezes is wasted food, Nari replied. But there seemed to be less conviction in her tone. Tai took a chance. May I show you something? Without waiting for her answer, he retrieved the sample case and opened it. Inside, protected by clear containers, were small ecosystems, miniature worlds where colorful plants grew from what had once been dead soil. This one is a sample from a mining moon, he explained, pointing to a container where green shoots pushed through dark soil. The ground was poisoned with heavy metals. These plants draw the toxins out and convert them to harmless compounds. Nari leaned closer, her 4 eyes focusing independently in a way that made Ta's vision swim if he watched too closely. Our soil is dead, she said quietly. Nothing grows where once forests stood. These techniques could help. Ta placed the container back in its case. If I could reach my ship's main database, I could show your people how to begin healing your world. Why would you help hunters who would eat you? Nari's question was direct, her tone genuinely puzzled. Because life is precious. All life. Ta met her gaze steadily. And because I believe cooperation achieves more than conflict. A strange sound emerged from Nari. A rhythmic vibration, Tai would later learn was laughter. You are strange prey, Tai human. I'd prefer to be an ally than prey, he responded. As they spoke, the skies darkened further. Tad glanced up to see heavy clouds gathering, blotting out the moons. Acid rain comes, Nari said, rising to her full height. It burns skin, even mine. Before Tai could respond, the first drops began to fall. Where they hit exposed metal, they sizzled and smoked. Nari moved with blinding speed, pulling Ta toward his shelter. It was too small for both of them, but to his shock, she wrapped herself around the structure, her body forming a living shield. What are you doing? Ta called through the thin walls. Protecting potential ally, came the reply as the rain intensified. My scales resist acid better than your soft skin. Through gaps in the shelter, Tai could see the rain burning small marks on Nari's silver hide. Yet she remained motionless, enduring the pain. When the rain subsided an hour later, Tai emerged to find Nari's scales etched with dozens of small burns. Without thinking, he reached for his medical kit. I can treat those, he said, holding up a healing gel. This will ease the pain and speed recovery. Nari studied him with all 4 eyes. You would heal the one who hunted you. You protected me from the rain, Tai replied simply. One good turn deserves another. As he carefully applied the gel to her burns, Ta felt the powerful muscles beneath her scales gradually relax. The tension between predator and prey had transformed into something neither of them had words to describe yet. Tomorrow, Nari said as the last burn was treated, I will help you find your ship's database. Then you will show my people how to make dead things live again. Under the clearing skies, hunter and hunted sat side by side before the fire, sharing food and the first fragile threads of understanding. A different kind of hunger had begun to grow between them, a hunger for knowledge, for exchange, for possibility. The mountain path twisted like a serpent between jagged rocks and toxic pools. Ta followed Neri's lead, careful to step only where she stepped. After 5 days together, he had come to trust her instincts about this deadly world. The acid rain had left small burn marks on his suit despite their shelter, but Neri's wounds were healing well thanks to his medical gel. "Your treatment works better than our healers," Neri remarked, her silver scales catching the morning light as she paused to sniff the air. "I would have carried these marks for a season without it. Medical technology is something my people prioritized," Tai explained. "Living so long in space forced us to get good at healing quickly." They had left the crash site at dawn, heading toward the northern mountains where Ta's backup transmitter had fallen. According to his tracking device, it was less than a day's journey away. "Tell me about the hunting rituals of humans," Neri said as they climbed a steep incline. "What prey do you value most?" Ta smiled. "Most humans don't hunt anymore. We grow our food or make it synthetically." Neri's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Ta had learned indicated confusion. "Then how do you prove your worth? How do you honor your ancestors?" "We measure worth in different ways. Knowledge, creativity, kindness to others. Kindness to prey." Neri clicked her jaw plates in what Tai now recognized as amusement. "We stopped seeing other beings as prey long ago," Tai replied. "It allowed us to build civilizations instead of just surviving." They reached a high ridge overlooking a vast valley. In the distance, Tai could see the ruins of what must have once been a great Daki city. Its spires were crumbling, and no smoke rose from its structures. "Your people lived there once?" he asked. Neri's posture changed, her normally proud stance becoming less certain. "The Great Nest, home to 10,000 Daki before the hunger times began." "What happened?" "We hunted too well," she said simply. "First, the herds vanished. Then the forests died. Then we turned on each other." A screech from above interrupted their conversation. 3 winged creatures with razor-sharp talons circled overhead, their leathery wings spanning at least 4 meters each. "Sky Rippers," Neri hissed, pulling Tai against the rock face. "They hunt by day when most Daki sleep. Stay still." The creatures dove suddenly, their target not the travelers but something in the valley below. Ta watched as they tore into a carcass, fighting among themselves over the remains. "Even the scavengers grow desperate," Neri observed. "They never came this close to the mountains before." They continued their journey in silence. Ta noticed how Neri constantly scanned their surroundings, her smaller secondary eyes tracking movement, while her main eyes stayed focused on the path. She was an apex predator, evolved for hunting, yet now she used those skills to protect him. By midday, the twin suns of Neri's world hung directly overhead, making the toxic pools bubble and release noxious fumes. They took shelter in a shallow cave. "We must wait until the yellow sun sets," Neri explained. "The vapors are deadly even to Daki." Tai took the opportunity to rest. He removed his pack and checked his oxygen levels. The atmosphere of this planet wasn't immediately fatal to humans, but extended exposure caused lung damage. His filters were working at 60% efficiency. "Enough for now." "Your breathing device fails?" Neri asked, noticing his concern. "It's degrading faster than expected. The atmosphere here is more corrosive than I thought." Without hesitation, Neri reached into a pouch at her side and withdrew what looked like a small blue fruit. "Breathberry. It cleanses lungs of toxins. Our young eat them until their bodies grow strong enough." Ta hesitated. "Is it safe for humans?" "Unknown," Neri admitted. "But the toxins in your lungs are certain harm." Trusting her once more, Tai took the fruit and bit into it. The taste was intensely bitter, making his eyes water, but almost immediately, his breathing felt easier. "Thank you," he said, genuinely moved by her concern. Neri tilted her head. "Strange that I first hunted you for food. Yet now I wish you to remain healthy." "It's called friendship," Ta smiled. Friendship, Nari repeated slowly, a human concept I begin to understand. As they waited for the yellow sun to set, Ta showed Nari pictures from Earth on his partially functioning datapad. She was especially fascinated by images of forests and oceans. Your world has so much water, she observed. So much green. It wasn't always that way. We nearly destroyed it first. How did humans stop hunting their world to death? Ta considered his answer carefully. We realized that short-term gain led to long-term loss. Some lessons were learned too late, but we preserved enough to rebuild. The yellow sun finally dipped below the horizon, leaving only the red sun in the sky. They resumed their journey, climbing higher into the mountains. Suddenly, Nari froze, her nostrils flaring. Blood scent. Fresh. She moved in front of Tai protectively, her claws extending to their full length. From around a bend in the path, a wounded donkey appeared, dragging one leg and leaving a trail of greenish blood. Seeing them, the injured donkey tried to flee but collapsed. Nari approached cautiously. He is from a rival hunting lodge, she explained to Ta. Normally my enemy. Without hesitation, Ta moved toward the fallen donkey. Enemy or not, he needs medical help. The wounded donkey snarled weakly, revealing broken teeth and a deep gash across his chest. Using his translator, Tai could understand his garbled words. Kill me quickly, hunter. It is the only honor left. Instead, Tai opened his medical kit and began treating the wound. Nari watched in silence as he cleaned, sealed, and bandaged the injury. Why do you help one who would kill and eat you? She asked. Because I can, Tai replied simply. Compassion isn't based on whether someone deserves it. The injured donkey stared at Ta with all four eyes wide. The soft one has strange power. He heals rather than harms. When they had done what they could, Nari helped the wounded hunter to a sheltered overhang. Rest here until your strength returns. The human has given you new life. As they continued their journey, Nari was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. Your ways challenge everything I have known, Ta human. Our strongest law is to hunt or be hunted. Yet you show strength by healing an enemy. Different worlds, different ways, Ta replied. But we can learn from each other. By nightfall, they'd reached the ledge where Ta's tracking device indicated the transmitter had landed. As they searched the area, Nari suddenly seized Ta's arm. Listen, she whispered. In the distance, they could hear the rhythmic pounding of drums, a sound that made Nari's scales ripple with tension. The great hunt has begun, she said, her voice tight with concern. My hunting lodge comes this way, seeking worthy prey. She looked directly at Ta, all four eyes reflecting the starlight. They will find you a most worthy prey indeed. Morning light crept over the mountains, painting the rocks red. Ta worked frantically to repair the damaged transmitter. Parts lay scattered around him on the flat stone where they had made camp. The device had cracked during landing, but its core components remained intact. They will arrive by midday, Nari warned, her tall form casting a long shadow. Her silver scales reflected the sunrise as she scanned the valley below. I hear their hunt songs growing closer. Almost there, Ta promised, connecting delicate wires with steady hands despite his fear. If I can just bypass the damaged power cell. Nari paced around their small camp, her powerful legs carrying her silently despite her size. 5 days ago, she had been hunting Ta for food. Now she was protecting him from her own kind. The change troubled her deeply. My hunt leader is called Hoon, she explained. He has never failed to capture prey. He wears the bones of 20 different species on his honor belt. Ta nodded without looking up from his work. How many hunters with him? 5 warriors, all proven killers. Nari crouched beside Ta, her massive frame somehow making herself smaller. You cannot fight them. You cannot outrun them. Then I'll have to convince them, Ta said, connecting the final wire. The transmitter hummed to life, its lights blinking weakly. Yes, it's working. His celebration was cut short by a low whistle from Neri. She pointed to the valley path where dust rose from approaching hunters. They were still too far to see clearly, but moving quickly. "What will you tell them?" Tai asked, gathering his critical equipment. Neri's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Ta now knew indicated deep thought. "Truth is respected among Daki, even when unpleasant. I will tell them that you can save our world." "Will that be enough?" "Perhaps not. Hunger often speaks louder than reason." She placed one clawed hand on Ta's shoulder with surprising gentleness. "If they attack, run for the cave system behind us. I will hold them as long as possible." Ta shook his head. "I won't leave you to face punishment for helping me." "Stubborn prey," Neri said, but her tone carried something like affection. The hunting party arrived sooner than expected. 6 Daki warriors climbed the final ridge, their silver scales adorned with colorful markings of rank and achievement. Leading them was Hun, nearly a head taller than Neri, and bearing scars across his face that had been filled with red mineral, making them stand out against his silver scales. "Neri of the Mountain Lodge," Hun called out, his deep voice carrying easily across the distance. "We came to join your hunt, but it seems you have already found worthy prey." The hunting party spread out in a half circle, effectively cutting off escape routes. Their claws extended, catching the sunlight like polished knives. Neri straightened to her full height, assuming a formal stance. "Hun of the Valley Lodge, I greet you with respect. This human is not prey but a potential ally to all Daki." Murmurs ran through the hunting party. Hun stepped forward, his massive head tilting as he studied Ta. "Soft skin, fragile bones, small teeth. It looks like excellent prey to me." He sniffed the air. "And you have not eaten in many days, Neri. Why does this prey still live?" Ta stepped forward before Neri could answer. To the shock of all present, he spoke in the Daki language, words Neri had taught him during their journey. "I offer greater sustenance than my flesh could provide," he said, his pronunciation careful but clear. "Knowledge that could restore your hunting grounds." Hun's 4 eyes widened, then narrowed skeptically. "It speaks our sacred tongue. You taught prey our language, Neri." "I taught an ally words of respect," she replied firmly. One of the other hunters moved closer, studying Ta's equipment. "What are these devices?" "Technology that can heal dying worlds," Tai explained, switching back to common language which his translator could handle better. "My people once faced the same problems yours face now. Dying soil, vanishing food sources, toxic air." "Pretty words from prey trying to delay its purpose," Hun growled. He turned to Neri. "You have broken the most sacred law of the hunt. The penalty is exile, or death." Neri stood her ground. "Our most sacred law is survival of our people. This human offers that." "Enough," Hun roared. "Take the human." Neri has gone mad with hunger, refusing to eat when food stands before her. 2 hunters moved toward Tai, but Neri stepped between them. "He is under my protection." "Then you die with him," Hun declared, raising his hunting spear. The standoff might have ended in bloodshed then, but nature intervened. The ground beneath them trembled suddenly, a deep rumbling that grew quickly in intensity. The mountain itself seemed to groan. "Earthshake," one of the hunters cried as cracks appeared in the stone ledge. The section where Hun and 2 others stood began to separate from the main ledge. Rock crumbled beneath their feet, threatening to send them tumbling down the mountainside. The hunters leaped back, but Hun lost his footing as the ledge gave way. He clung to the edge, his powerful arms straining to hold his weight. Without hesitation, Ta grabbed a cable from his equipment pack and secured one end to a solid rock. Before anyone could stop him, he ran to the crumbling edge and threw the other end to Hun. "Take it," he shouted. Hun's eyes showed confusion, but survival instinct took over. He grasped the cable as more of the ledge collapsed. Ta braced himself, the line growing taut around his waist where he had secured it. Despite the difference in their weights, the human's position and leverage held. The other hunters watched in stunned silence as their leader dangled from a lifeline, held by what should have been his prey. With their help, Todd pulled Hume back to solid ground. When Hume stood safely on the ledge again, he stared at Ta with all four eyes. "Why save the one who would kill you?" "Because life is precious," Tay answered simply. "Even the life of someone who sees me as food." The hunting party fell silent. Such behavior defied everything they understood about the natural order. Prey did not save predators. It made no sense. Taking advantage of their confusion, Neri spoke. "This is why I could not kill them. His kind thinks differently than any species we have encountered. They have knowledge we need." Hoon studied Ta for a long moment. Then, in a gesture that shocked his hunting party, he retracted his claws. "Speak, human. Tell us of this knowledge that is worth more than your meat." Tai activated his data pad, projecting images of Earth's restoration projects, dead lands coming back to life, polluted waters running clear again. "My ship carried terraforming technology," he explained. "Organisms designed to clean soil and air, plants that can grow in toxic conditions, and make them habitable again." He showed them images of his own world's history, the destruction and the healing. "We nearly hunted our world to death too," Ta said. "But we learned to restore what was damaged." As the images played, the hunters moved closer, transfixed by visions of abundance they had never known. Even Hoon's hostile stance softened as he watched forests growing where there had been only dust. "Could such magic work on Dhaka?" one of the younger hunters asked. "It's not magic. It's science," Tay replied. "And yes, with time and effort, it could work here too." Hoon looked from the images to Nari, then back to Ta. His next words came slowly, as if each one cost him effort. "Perhaps this prey is worth more alive than dead." The great hall of the Daki echoed with voices as hundreds gathered to hear the human speak. Elders with scales, dulled by age, sat in the inner circle. Warriors and hunters formed the middle rings. Younglings crowded at the edges, their bright silver scales unmarked by hunting scars. Ta stood on the speaking stone, a circular platform in the center of the hall. The journey from the mountains had taken 7 days. During that time, Hoon and his hunters had changed from captors to curious escorts. They listened as Tai explained more about Earth's recovery methods and asked surprisingly thoughtful questions. Neri stood beside Ta now, her posture proud but anxious. As his protector, she would share in his honor or his failure before the elders. Elder Minna, oldest of all Daki with scales that had faded almost to white, raised her hand for silence. The hall immediately grew quiet. "Human Tai," she spoke, her voice stronger than her ancient body suggested. "You claim to bring knowledge that could restore our dying world. Many have made promises before. Why should we believe yours?" Tai activated the small device he had assembled from his surviving equipment. A holographic display appeared above it, showing microscopic images of soil samples. "This is your soil now," he said, indicating the lifeless gray material. "And this," the image shifted to show teeming microorganisms, "is what it could become in one cycle of your moons." Murmurs spread through the gathering. Tai continued, showing images of the technologies he carried. "My ship's database contains the genetic codes for organisms designed to clean toxins from soil and water. These can be programmed to target specific pollutants without harming native life." A younger elder named Jin leaned forward. "If your knowledge is so valuable, why would your people share it freely? What do humans gain?" "Alliance," Tai answered simply. "The universe is vast and often dangerous. Both our species have strengths the other lacks. Together, we could explore and grow in ways neither could alone." This caused louder discussions among the gathered Daki. The concept of cooperation rather than predation was foreign to them. Elder Minna silenced them with a gesture. "The council will deliberate. Until then, the human remains under Nari's protection." As the elders withdrew to consider Ta's proposal, Nari led him to a quiet alcove away from curious eyes. "You spoke well," she said. But the elders move slowly. They remember when Dhaka was green and do not easily trust outsiders' solutions. Ta nodded. Change is difficult for any species, but your world doesn't have much time left. No, Nari agreed soberly. The hunting lodges fight over smaller territories each season. Soon, only the strongest will survive. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the Great Hall's entrance. A group of hunters burst in, carrying something large. As they approached, Tay realized it was a Daki child, unconscious and badly burned. Acid pool, someone shouted. The youngling fell while hunting small prey. The gathered Daki moved back, making sounds of distress. A healer rushed forward but stopped short of touching the injured child, clearly unsure how to proceed. Without hesitation, Ta moved toward the injured youngling. I can help, he said, reaching for his medical kit. The treatments that helped Neri's acid burns will work here too. The child's parent hissed in warning, positioning themselves protectively. Human medicine on my offspring? Never. Neri stepped forward. This human healed my wounds when he could have let me suffer. His medicine works better than our healers. A tense moment passed before the parent reluctantly moved aside. Tai knelt beside the child, applying healing gel to the worst burns. The effect was almost immediate. The angry red marks began to fade, and the youngling's breathing steadied. The pain eases, the child whispered, opening all four eyes. Are you the human prey that is not prey? Ta smiled. I'm Ta, and you're very brave. The treatment continued as the elders returned from their deliberation. They watched in silence as Tai worked, his gentle hands treating wounds that would have left permanent scars with Daki medicine. When he finished, Elder Minna approached. We have watched how you care for a child not your own, of a species that would have eaten you days ago. Ta stood, meeting her gaze. Every life deserves care, regardless of what it might have done. A strange philosophy, Elder Jin remarked, yet one that saved this youngling much suffering. Elder Minna raised her voice to address the gathered Daki. The council has reached its decision. The human's knowledge will be accepted. His ship's database will be recovered. We will learn these restoration methods. Cheers and clicking sounds of approval filled the hall. Nari's scales rippled with excitement as she turned to Ta. Elder Minna wasn't finished. Furthermore, we declare a new law. Humans are no longer to be considered prey. They are to be recognized as allies. This announcement caused even more commotion. Changing a fundamental hunting law was unprecedented in Daki history. Later, as the twin moons rose over the city, Tai and Neri stood on a high balcony overlooking the valley. In the distance, the first test plot glowed faintly green, a small patch of soil treated with organisms from Tai's remaining samples. It grows already, Neri observed with wonder. Your tiny life-bringers work quickly. This is just the beginning, Tai explained. Full restoration will take years, but each success builds on the last. My people have a new word now, Neri said. Cooperate. It feels strange on the tongue but good in the mind. Ta smiled. Cooperation has helped my species survive where competition alone would have destroyed us. When your rescue ship arrives, will you leave? Nari asked, her tone carefully neutral. I'll go, but I'll return, Ta promised. With more supplies, more knowledge. This world deserves a second chance. Nari's scales reflected the moonlight as she turned to face him fully. I hunted you for food, but found a different kind of hunger. For knowledge, for change, for something beyond the endless cycle of hunter and prey. The best hungers are those that grow as they're fed, Tay replied. Knowledge, friendship, understanding. These only increase with sharing. Below them, in the Great Hall, the council was already organizing teams to begin the restoration work. Hunter lodges that had competed for generations were now assigned complementary tasks, their specialized skills directed toward healing rather than killing. My ancestors would not recognize what we do, Neri said, watching her people below. working together instead of testing strength against each other. They would be proud, Tai countered. You're ensuring your species survives. That's the most important success for any people. In the days that followed, Tai's transmitter finally reached his ship. A rescue vessel was dispatched, carrying scientists eager to study this new world and its remarkable inhabitants. What had begun as a simple hunt had transformed into something unprecedented, a partnership between former predator and prey. On the morning Ta's rescue ship appeared in Dhaka's sky, a small green shoot pushed through the soil near the Great Hall, the first natural plant to grow there in a generation. Nari carefully placed a protective barrier around it. It is called hope leaf in our oldest stories, she explained to Ta. Said to grow only when the world is healing. Tay touched the delicate green stem gently. A good sign for the future. Yes, Nari agreed, her 4 eyes watching both the plant and the human beside her. A new kind of hunger begins for my people, not for flesh, but for growth. The rescue ship landed as the twin suns reached their zenith. Scientists emerged, carrying equipment and supplies. They paused, clearly startled by the sight of silver-scaled giants waiting to greet them. Ta stepped forward with Nari beside him, ready to begin the next chapter in the unexpected alliance between their peoples. Welcome to Dhaka, he called to his fellow humans. I have some friends I'd like you to meet.